Hi all, and welcome to your first lesson of week 9. This lesson in 4.5 is going to be split into two parts, as you might have seen in the week 9 calendar. Your first part is going to be, this is going to be the homework for the entire sections. Look in the description or in the week calendar for exactly which ones you should do each day, or my recommended ones, but you can work through it at your own pace. You have two presentation problems. You have 12, which is the presentation for Tuesday, and then 4.5, number 4, is the presentation for Monday. Again, this is all in the descriptions. The reason for this is we're using notes from last year because they were really well organized. I liked them. I liked what they covered, but we're slowing things down a little bit in distance learning. So get yourself ready, get your packet of notes and your materials all ready to go, and we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we notice that our objective today is to display data with frequency tables, histograms, and line graphs. So let's start off by talking about what a frequency table is. This also is called a frequency distribution. They are synonyms. Now what this is, we see an example here where we have a T-chart, meaning that we can draw a line like this and then down, and it makes a little T-chart that shows the data that we're interested in this case the score, and the frequency of that data in a data set. So for example, it might be something like this. It's going to always be in order, where we have the T-chart, where we have our data here and our frequency. We're going to have our min and our max, and then we might have some numbers in between. So let's say, for example, we had our minimum, our maximum, and in between those is 7. Let's say that it has a frequency of 10, so if that's the entry in the table. So that would be, if we're looking at this example, maybe we have something that the score is 2 and the frequency is 5, for example. Now what this means is that the number 7, the data point 7, shows up in the data set 10 times. So if I was going to expand the data set, I would have to make sure that it has a frequency that is the same as what we see here. So for example, in number 1, it's asking us to expand our data set. And if we look at our set, we see, okay, for the score 1, that has a frequency of 2, which means that 1 shows up 2 times. 2 shows up 5 times, 3 shows up 4, and so on. So if I'm expanding it out as a list, I would say I've got 2 1s, and then I have 5 2s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 3 4s, 4 3s, excuse me, right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. This is from our next line here. I have 2 4s, 4, 4, and I have 1 5. So again, if it makes it easier to write it out like this, this would be 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, and a 5, and then we can just put them all in one long list like we see at the bottom. One other way we might be asked to display the data is in a bar graph. Now, a bar graph for the data will have an x and a y axis, just like this. Whoop. Y here, and then x. The y axis is always going to be the frequency. You want to always label your axes. And then the x axis will be whatever the data is. In this case, it's score. And we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The highest frequency we have is also 5, so then I'll divide 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now a bar graph is going to just be centered around the number at the bottom, and will go up to the correct height. So if there's 2 1s, it would go up to 2. For 2, that has a frequency of 5. So it will have the same height here, 5. 3 has a frequency of 4, so that tells us the height. 4 has a frequency of 2, and then there's 1, 5. So this would be a bar graph. Important things to note, they are not touching. And this will be important for our next lesson, and you'll also notice that they are centered above the number. All right? Now, once we have our frequency distributions, it's important to know how to use them to find our median, mode, or modes if there's more than one, and range of data. Now, there's two ways you can do this. One is, just like we have here, is you can expand it all out and, just like we did last week, do your math like that. But I'll show you a couple neat tricks. Like before I expand it out, I can already look and find my mode, because my mode is just the most frequent. So if I look here, mode is the score with the most frequency, so the highest frequency. Now in this case, the highest frequency is 5, so our mode is 2. Just makes it a little bit easier, like so. There's also a nice trick to help with our mean. So with our mean, we have to add all these up. Now, in order to add all these up, it might take us a while. We go 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, all the way up. But what I prefer to do is I will take our score times the frequency, and then I'm adding up all the numbers of that type together. So the ones together there's 2 ones, so that would be a total of 2. The 2's all together, there's 5 of those, so all together would be 10, because that's 2 times 5. Right, we're just multiplying them together to give us our new column as a way to add things up a little bit quicker. 10, the sum of all the 3's would be 12, 8, and 5. So the total is, in this case, going to be 2, 10, 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. 24 plus 8 is, 24 plus 8 would be 32. Plus another 5 is 37. Now, that's our total. Our total number of points is here. So 2 plus 5 plus 4 is going to be 7, plus 4 is 11, plus another 2, 13, 14. So in terms of our mean, our mode was 2, our mean is 37 over 14, which we can leave like that, or we can simplify into a mixed number if we like, which would be 2 and 9/14. Mixed numbers and fractions, I'm fine with either of them. If you have the expanded one out, that's probably easier to find your median. We can go like this, cross out 2 on either side. Sometimes it's nice to just cross out big bunches at the same time. So maybe cross out 3 on both sides. And as we get closer, we go 1, 2. Oh, our median is here. It's right in between 2 and 3. So our median is going to be 2 plus 3 over 2. Because when we have it in the center, we find the average of the 2, which is equal to 5 over 2, which is an acceptable final answer, but you might want to simplify it to 2 and 1/2. Finally, our range, this is a new one. Range is equal to the maximum in our data set minus the minimum in our data set. So in this case, the biggest number of our data set is 5, and the smallest number is 1, so the range would be 4. And we always want to box our final answers to keep ourselves a little more organized. So there we go with bar graphs and frequency distributions. The last thing that you'll see today in our notes is talking about line graphs. Line graphs are like what we see here. Make sure when you're making your own line graph that you include your title and label your axes, just like the example that we see and just like we talked about in the bar graph up here. And once you plot the points, So you can see here, they've got points all along this graph. You can either connect them with line segments, so you go from here to the next one. That would be with line segments. Or you can do what we see in the picture, which is approximate a curve if you think a curve makes more sense for the data. Now, the line graphs can be helpful because we can now use them to estimate at points where we don't have data. So for example, this graph shows the temperature of boiling water as it cools. Estimate the temperature of the water after 5 minutes. If I look at 5 minutes, so I'm looking at the unit right here, if I notice this person didn't actually take the temperature of the water at 5 minutes. But based on the line graph, we can see that we're looking at something about here. And we're going to estimate it. From my perspective, it looks like it's just a little bit above 80. So I'm going to say, I'm going to estimate my answer as the water is approximately 81 degrees Celsius. Make sure you include your units. Though I think that anything between 80 and 85 degrees Celsius would be a reasonable answer. All right, stop here with your notes and start that first section, and we'll talk about histograms in the next lesson. Please leave any questions you have in the comments or make an appointment on Zoom. I'll talk to you later.